Sometimes to move forward, tough decisions have to be made. On this day 3 years ago, the administration at Tennessee made the tough decision to fire Jeremy Pruitt. Phil Fulmer retired. Tennessee football on this day regained its pulse, and Frank Rock regained his fandom. Good Thursday evening. This is the House of Orange Sports Channel. My name is Frank Rock. Sometimes when we look at sports at Tennessee, it ain't all that grand. Things are going pretty good right now in Knoxville, but looking back on things, I thought I honestly hadn't thought much about it. And then I was looking at some stuff and I saw 3 years ago was the date that Jeremy Pruitt was fired, Philip Fulmer retired, and Tennessee began the process of looking forward. I think when we look at what Josh Heupel did last year, and then, or I guess 2 seasons ago at this point, and then the season that just finished, yeah, it was 9-4. Maybe it wasn't all that bad. So I want to take a revisionist history and look back on that day 3 years ago. What happened? How it moved forward. I mentioned in kind of my little intro there about how Frank Rock regained his freedom. Not his freedom, his fandom on that day. We all went through the down years of Tennessee football. And Tennessee football is not fully back yet, not consistently anyway, but I was always there. It was every year. I still had that pulse. I was still excited about the season. That Jeremy Pruitt era about did it for me. Number one, I never liked that hire. I never liked him from the get-go. Yes, I supported him because he was the coach of the University of Tennessee. From the first snap in Charlotte against West Virginia, he sucked. He got him to a bowl game the second year. He had a couple high moments, but there were much more lows than highs. And at no point did I ever think this is the guy to turn Tennessee football around. That second year, I think it was fool's gold. It really was. I mean, he come out of the gate, lost to Georgia State, lost to BYU. Should have never happened. The teams they beat down the stretch, he really didn't beat anyone of significance, but I mean, they did what they should have done. But that era, man, you look back on it. We look back on the one Lane Kiffin year. We look back on the Derek Dooley era, the Butch Jones era, and now we look at the Jeremy Pruitt era as well. The Kiffin era was, I don't know, it happened so quick. It's really hard to process where that one was going. I think there were concerns with that one. I mean, the Derek Dooley era should have never happened. That was crazy, but there were moments. That first year they got a bowl game. The North Carolina game in the Music City Bowl, and they sold out. Now Nissan Stadium. That was a fun game. That was fun when Tyler Bray took that over. It was a fun team to watch. The next year, not so much. Lots of pain. And then Dooley's third year, awesome offense to watch, terrible defense to watch. And so there were some moments where it was entertaining. The Butch Jones era, that guy was close. He was close to turning that program around. He was close. But he's a guy, I think, in the end, didn't realize where he was at. He still thought he was in the MAC. He still thought he was in, the Big East at the time. I don't think he ever fully grasped the expectations of the University of Tennessee. You have an SEC East that's ripe for the picking, yet you pissed it away, for lack of a better term. And then, the champions of life and all that garbage that they come up with. It was just so tone deaf. And in year 4, they won 9 games and had all that talent with Dobbs, with Kamara, with Barnett. I mean, you could go on and on about the talent on that roster and just the tone comments. I think that was the beginning of the end. Led to the infamous search that come after that, almost resulted in Greg Schiano. We know the uproar that happened, which prevented that. And then that also led to John Curry, who's now the AD at Wake Forest. That led to his ouster as well. Greg Schiano almost led to Mike Leach along the way, which could have been fun. I think could have been a lot of fun. I don't know where that would have went. And, rest in peace, Mike Leach, one of the most fun guys to watch, funniest guys out there. But then Philip Fulmer comes in. Final three, Jeremy Pruitt, Mel Tucker, Kevin Steele. Went with Jeremy Pruitt, which at the time a lot of people said Jeremy Pruitt is ready for that big job. He wasn't ready for Tennessee. He come in, obviously he bent the rules. That's probably putting it mildly, actually. He broke the shit out of the rules. Looking back on what he did, and he had 18 level 1 violations, 200 recruiting violations, and like 4 level 1 unethical conduct violations. Pretty bad stuff. To go along with it, it's one thing if this program would have been rolling and winning. 3-7 is last year in the SEC only year. It was awful. It's awful to watch. Come out of the gate, beat really a South Carolina team wasn't very good. Lucky to beat them in a respect. Beat Missouri pretty handedly. And then it was just the Georgia game. Things were going good. Something happened at halftime, and that team never recovered. But the problem that went into that year, he went in with a quarterback who hadn't gotten it done and did not go to the portal to get anybody to, pressure him. They had Brian Maurer coming back. They had, the living legend, Harrison Bailey, coming in. None of these guys panned out. Jim Chaney was in. People were excited about that. It just didn't work. And and then it come out. The writing's on the wall. Some of you guys that watch this know I was on another channel. And, I'm not going any further than that. I'm not giving them any more pub. But at that time, I was doing a segment. And I said after that Texas A&M game that day, this is the end of the Jeremy Pruitt era. And I got trashed over it. People, no way, you can't do that. It's going to set Tennessee football back all these years. We'll never recover from it. So why do you stick with someone who is not the job, not the guy? You don't do it just to do it. Yeah, there's the Dabo Swinney instance where they stuck with him and he became the guy. I don't follow Clemson football enough to know what all went into that program. I probably follow it a little bit more now since I don't live that far from Clemson. But during this program time, it was obvious. It was obvious. Now, you had Caden Salter and Hendon Hooker coming in. Josh Heupel inherited Hendon Hooker and Caden Salter. Pretty good situation. Caden Salter couldn't handle it in Knoxville. He's excelling at Liberty, and good for him. He's turned things around. But at that point in time, we went months with the rumors. It'd come up Tennessee was going to Liberty Bowl, play West Virginia. Philip Fulmer, I remember being sick to my stomach. This was when I almost was done. I talked about my fandom, and I went through a lot. Couldn't stand Jeremy Pruitt. I hated that era. If Jeremy Pruitt would have came back for a 4th year, I was about 99% sure I was done. Now, there was that 1% which would have probably outweighed the 99. Let's make no mistake about it. I've always been hard in Tennessee. That would have been really hard to put away. But if there was ever an instance where I would have said this is enough, that would have been it. Philip Fulmer made the comments about Jeremy Pruitt will be preparing this team for the Liberty Bowl, and then he'll be getting ready for spring practice. And that comment made me sick to my stomach. Made me sick. Didn't even want to hear it. Could not stand to hear that. But rumors went around. The writing was on the wall all that time. Philip Fulmer was putting on a front because it's come out. He had a list of candidates ready. I ultimately thought at the time Kevin Steele was lined up to take over for Pruitt. The more I've read on it, there's a part of me thinks T. Martin may have been lined up to do it. But there was a list of candidates for it. But on that day, January 18th, Tennessee football regained its pulse. Dondre Plowman sat up there at the podium, answered all the tough questions. People were like, what in the hell is she doing here? She put it out there and put calls. Jeremy Pruitt's out of here. Show calls. He's fired with calls. We're not paying his buyout. 3 days later, Danny White is hired Tennessee athletics is excelling. January 27th, Josh Heupel officially hired. People didn't like the hire. I liked it because we had seen such bad offenses for 4 years. The Josh Dobbs offenses were pretty good. Those 4 after it were hard to watch. We were getting an offensive guy, and I loved it. I'm an offensive guy. Give me an offense over defense. Obviously, yeah, defense wins championships, not in this day and age. You got to be able to play some defense, but you got to be able to score some points as well. You got to have a little combination of both, which is something Tennessee football is currently still working towards. But, again, sometimes revisionist history helped you with where you're at that point in time. And I thought it was interesting to go back and revisit that and where Tennessee football is at now. It's still on the up. It's still on the up. I'm going to drop a video here in just a few minutes. I'm coming right back to record about the offensive line in 2024. A lot of people's worried about that. Is it valid or not? I don't know. I do know. I know what I'll talk about with it. We'll drop that in just a few minutes. And then at the end of the video, my first slide, when it pops up on the outro, I've got everything detailed for the weekend and into Monday that's going to drop and what time I'm going to drop it. Tennessee at Alabama, or Alabama at Tennessee basketball this weekend. Got a lot of cool topics, a lot of cool stuff coming. It's going to be continuous. Come up with a lot of original stuff on here. I don't need to go to a pay website and get all my content. Okay, I like to come up with original comment as much as possible. Can I take an article and take something from it? Absolutely. Absolutely. But I do like to come up with as much original stuff as possible through my own research. And that's the educator in me as well. But as always, guys, thank you for tuning in. If you like this, if you'll share it, send it out. I don't expect you to love this topic. I don't love it either. But I thought it was interesting on the 3-year anniversary of this firing and the date that I feel Tennessee football regained its pulse. Frank Rock was all in once again. Frank Rock, House of Orange Sports Channel. Enjoy your Thursday evening. And as always, go Vols.